This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Welcome, dear listeners, once again to Nuff Said. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Tonight's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Season 6, Episode 5, The Other Thing. Sarge has May, Altera has Daisy, Enoch and Simmons, and now there are two planets that need saving. Our director this week is Lou Diamond Phillips.
Is it really?
It is Lou Diamond Phillips himself. So apparently the guy directs now. Well, you know, a lot of actors direct. You know, you as you grow as an artist, you start to direct, and so that is what Lou Diamond Phillips is doing now. And so very happy to see Lou Diamond Phillips get that credit. I was like, oh wow, Lou Diamond Phillips. Our writing credits, of course, Stanley and Jack Kirby are getting our based on the Marvel Comics by credit. Joss Whedon and Jed Whedon and Marissa Tancharon are getting our created buys. George Kitson of the planet Kitson gets our written by credit. James C. Oliver and Charlotte Oliver are doing that 2-on-1 work as the executive story editors, overseeing Mr. George Kitson again, hardest working man in the show business, 2 job. He is also our story editor. Man, this episode.
Yeah.
This one, I liked this episode. I don't know. Your was a little soft there.
No, I did.
As much as I did. I found it very interesting, and I'm trying to remember how we start off, but I know one item that just really stuck out for me is, and I have to send you this. Nerdwire has a whole breakdown of the entire series up until this season. I have to send you that link, and it'll bring you up. Nerdwire is a great source for stuff like that, and fun kids doing it too. All a bunch of crazy millennials, but you know.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that we got revelations on what Sarge is actually doing, and then who was the character that's sort of kidnapped by him? The lady, what's her name?
Oh, you mean May?
May, gotcha, Agent May.
Yes.
Right, so she still sort of doesn't soften up at all to him, or doesn't sort of.
Oh no.
And it kept making me think, like, if he was sort of on the side of quote unquote good, then why would he not align himself with S.H.I.E.L.D.? And then I figured, maybe because he doesn't know who they are or what they are, and even if they were on his sides, if he were to come clean with them about what he's actually doing, he wouldn't have the autonomy to conduct things the way he would have, and it would have to go through proper channels. So I kind of see where he's coming from, that he didn't have the luxury of making friends with them.
Well, yeah, and of course, it's like Sliders. You never really know what world you're going to come on to.
That's true. Right.
He's coming on world to world. He doesn't know, like they say, some worlds are great, some worlds are awful.
Yeah.
And he does not know, if this is a world ruled by, crazed mind control monsters, or if this is a world, with, representative democracy, or some mixture of the two.
Right.
Basically, from what I understand, and I think what we're looking at here is something kind of akin to what was the storyline that they were kind of doing in the comics just before the last big Secret Wars arc, where basically the idea was that you had all these planets being destroyed, and from what he says of what his plan is he's trying to lure the creator of the Shrike to that world when they come, so they can try and destroy the creator. And it makes you wonder how close they've ever gotten and what their real plan is. But I do get the feeling that their plan is to blow up this planet regardless,
Right.
That basically he's not really there to save the planet. He's there to, they are trying to stop the Shrikes, but they're also trying to lure the creator of the Shrikes into this world so they can destroy him.
Right. So it's kind of like a vampire thing, kill the creator of all the vampires and they all die.
Yeah, except I'm guessing the only way they can do that is kind of what I had been saying about the previous season, that they stopped Graviton from blowing up the planet, but blowing up the planet would have actually stopped Thanos.
Huh.
So, had you actually blown up the planet, that would have destroyed Thanos, and he wouldn't have been able to get the Mind Stone, and he wouldn't be able to complete his snap, and yada, yada, yada. That you could have actually defeated this in a different way, but it also would have cost this planet, because it becomes setting this trap that's going to destroy the world. And so I do think that's why even after May does come to Sarge's way of thinking, she's still like, yeah, no,
Right.
we're not doing this. We're not going along with this. We're going back to base, because if nothing else, you can give intel to the base.
Right.
You know.
And we might have resources that you can make use of.
Well, maybe we can find a way to do this without blowing up the planet.
Right. Right.
And I'm sure that is May's central goal in that.
Right.
Let's try not to destroy the world.
It's funny. It kind of reminds me of the plot of the original Halo video game, where this flood is this infectious creature or disease that infects people and turns them into these mindless things that all they want to do is eat sentient life. So the plan of our ancient forerunner ancestors was to wipe out all sentient life in the galaxy in order to starve this thing called the flood out. So it sort of reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, that might not be that wrong of a view of the world, of the plan. Now, at the same time, we do see back with Enoch and the gang, and they're trying to figure out what to do. Well, and I guess to me, like, the obvious thing is, okay, well, let's try and jump back to Earth, because we only have one jump left, so we really need to go back to Earth, because that's at least where we can get fuel. Maybe they can get fuel somewhere else, and maybe they're trying to strategize what is their best plan. But it does seem like going back to Earth is going to be their best plan. And they do wind up getting surrounded by the Chronotons, which leads us to sort of this associated story, which is what actually one of the things I really liked about this was that they are tying both stories together. That as luck would have it, the Chronotons' homeworld apparently was destroyed by these Shrikes as well. And after their world was destroyed, the Confederacy came to sort of sort out, basically see what they could steal from the Chronotons, and did not expect the resistance, which is because it's because basically the Chronotons are essentially Terminators. It's just a planet full of sentient robots covered in skin. And,
right. So the Shrikes were still able to find a biology inside their bodies that was like host worthy to them, even though it's.
I'm guessing, or maybe there was other creatures on the Chronoton homeworld that could also serve as that.
That makes sense, because they are created. They aren't biologically evolved, right? They were created, the Chronotons.
Yeah, they do that is what they appear to be. And although for what they did say at the same time was that they are so advancedly designed that they could fool most any device. They appear as human as anything.
Right, sort of like the hosts in Westworld.
Exactly. So it's an interesting question, but and again, an interesting aspect of that in that they are looking to develop time travel technology.
Right.
And again, going back to this idea that, but of course, the thing is that we actually know it will not work based on what we've already have established in Endgame. So, and Endgame kind of spoils this because and I get the feeling that Fitz is going to tell them this as he's going through this. He's like, look, you can't go back in time and change the present.
Right.
All you can do is go
branch another reality.
Yeah, although in truth, so this is what's going to happen is like, Fitz might think you can do that, but then Gemma's going to say, well, actually, no, because Deke survived. Deke didn't just disappear when we changed the timeline. So you can, but what that says is you can go back to the past, you can alter the past, but if you go back to the future, you can't. It'll be the same future you came from.
How fast?
So. Yeah, well, it's it's
Yeah.
time travel, Mozz. Either all of it's a joke or none of it is.
Right. You know what's interesting to me is like the chronotons are like ultra smart. They're like completely sort of these AI that have no bandwidth issues with how many calculations they can
Mhm.
conduct per second or per nanosecond or whatever. And they aren't able to figure out how time travel works. They need a biological entity
Well,
like a
yeah.
human to do it. I
Well,
found that
because they
very
lack
fascinating.
creativity. That's the thing is an AI, no matter how advanced an AI is, it's only going to have the knowledge that's been provided to it. And now, if you give it time travel,
Right.
if you tell it how time travel works, it can do time travel probably better than you. But until it knows how time travel works, it doesn't have the knowledge base to know how time travel works.
Yeah, but don't you think AI would be able to conduct experiments, sort of learn about the world around them, that they would eventually stumble upon the quantum physics of the universe,
Yeah,
how ions and electrons and whatnot work, and how they relate to time on a dimensional scale, and how they can maybe mess with it? And if they can compute, algorithms that give them infinite possibilities, and they can work out each equation to the end and figure out, oh, that one doesn't work, oh, that one does, oh, this might be work, and they can do this a million times per nanosecond, they should be able to have some sort of insight into how the nature of the universe actually works, more so than a human would.
well, although again, we do have this question of what are they designed for. So, as an
Ah,
example, this is something that has come up. We have our hunter class. We have our I forget what he called it. So
right.
it wasn't archaeologist. It was a sociologist class. That what Enoch is. He's just there to record things. And then they have guys that smack people around. The Terminator class essentially. And then we have whatever our current leader is. Her name is uh um, Eltrea, or sorry,
Ah.
Eltara, which I love when she comes in and says, "I have no gender. I'm a Chronoton. I have no gender."
Does that mean they can shapeshift, or they were made with an outward appearing gender, but they don't really ascribe to it because they're not actually human?
Exactly. They're non-biologic, so they all have data ports. They all have
Oh,
charging
so they don't
cables. Yeah.
they don't have organs down
Well,
there.
I mean, they might be fully functional, as Data once said, but then again, they might not because what would be the purpose?
Right. Maybe to blend in
Well,
and to
yeah,
fool people. Cause,
yeah,
right.
but then again, it's like what would in your list of things that are like important, unless you're
Yeah.
going to go to a planet in which somehow putting something or having something put into you is part of normal discourse, you're not going to need that stuff, and so you're just going to be like, okay, yeah, you know that
Yeah.
that's not what we're designed for,
Right.
but we have to blend in, and we blend in the way we do. Although, for what it's worth, they all look like standard Earth Terran humans, even though we've seen that there's a lot of different other shapes and sizes that sentients come in on this universe. So one's guessing that they're probably based most off of how their sentient life forms evolved on their planets. Because again, you got to assume that someone built it.
Right.
I wonder if there's going to be a thing here where we're going to get kind of a Brainiac thing going, where actually they're going to be
Ooh.
that they were actually created by the same creator that's destroying all these planets, because once they gather the knowledge, they start to destroy these worlds, which might also explain why Enoch was sent to a world that was about to be destroyed, and then when it didn't get destroyed, that's caused all kinds of trouble for everyone,
Hmm.
because Earth was supposed to be destroyed by Daisy or by Graviton, and then it wasn't.
Gotcha.
John, make sure everything's swept up. Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting question what they're doing. And man, it's Enoch is trying so hard to navigate having friends.
Hey, he's doing a pretty decent job of it, and I don't think Fitz really truly appreciated, what Enoch did for him.
Yeah.
Because, through maneuvering and, 3D chess, he was able to save everyone's life.
Mm-hmm.
No one got murdered, and he's about to, well, I mean, I guess she left. Now, when she said to the rest of her team, I'm going to go be with Enoch, I don't think he needs me as a motivator. He needs me as a accomplice or as a partner in the science itself. And I thought that's what they were going to go, but they still decided to go the old route, which Enoch suggested, which is to use her as leverage.
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out just yet. What we can assume is that they are, and it seems like we're from the I don't know if you saw the teaser for next week's episode yet or not, but
I don't think it is.
Okay, yeah, but it looks like they're going to be doing some kind of and this is the thing about what I was going to say about, like, sure, they should be able to figure all this stuff out on their own, but they're obviously going to be but they're pressed for time. You know, Altrea wants to get this fixed because, as she said, they're the last of their race. They're in these ships. It's like Battlestar Galactica, you know? It's like, sure, you could just live on the Chronotons live a very long time. They could just sit on the ships for 100 years and figure it out, but you know, she's worried that they're not going to be able to sit on the ships for 100 years and figure it out. You know, she's worried that, you know, we need to figure out how this time travel thing works, because she knows that something odd happened, because they know that Leopold Fitz died on Earth, but then he didn't, because now he's here. Which also, again, goes to this idea that I'm thinking that there is going to be a tie-in between the Chronotons and the Shrike, expressly because the Chronotons saw something was odd about Fitz in the same way
that Sarge did.
Sarge saw that about
Deke.
About Deke, exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of Sarge, and this is another thing that gets kind of interesting, because it raises some questions about when we're getting our flashbacks with May. Now, you didn't see this in the basically the first season. Although when I send you this link, and I'm going to find it and I'm going to send it to you tonight.
Okay.
Basically, you see how we have that kind of faded blue Tahiti look?
Mm-hmm.
That was basically the image they put in Coulson's mind when he was recovering from being brought back from the dead at the end of Avengers.
Oh, so was May actually there?
Well, we don't know.
Or was her consciousness at the very least? How is she remembering these
moments?
Well,
she's remembering. Well, because at the end of last season, officially, they went to Tahiti, because he had never actually been to Tahiti. He says, well, you know what? I spent that time in fake Tahiti. Let's go. And we can actually have our last days together. But the way that they're presenting these memories, they're being presented in a way that very much has the look of the Tahiti scenes when it was Coulson's false memory. That makes me wonder if May's memories are accurate.
Right.
If there was not something done with Coulson to basically reboot him once again. You know, maybe even a kind of a thing where when he dies, he now reboots. And
the way Sarge, explains his own existence, it seems like he's special, so he finds it really hard to believe that his counterpart in this world would not also be somehow special, not just a regular human.
Well, what's interesting about it is, he doesn't think that Coulson can be real because he's been to all these worlds. And this is the other thing that's interesting. It's suddenly sounding like he's not going from dimension to dimension. He's just going from planet to planet throughout the universe. That he's going through the universe to these planets where the Shrikes are attacking. And he's like the last line of defense against the Shrike. Which, not for nothing, ties into a shield idea that they were dealing with a while ago about something they did with Winter Soldier, where there was like this super, super, super deep shield that was what they called the man on the wall. And the idea is that there was just one guy who his job was just every time aliens showed up, he just shot them for like 100 years. And they actually show that he's lived like, all these years. And yeah, basically that aliens have been trying to invade Earth for 100 years or 200 years. And every time they try to, this little organization from the original S.H.I.E.L.D., which is this other thing going back centuries, which actually, in the comic books, this is Hickman's epic S.H.I.E.L.D. arc, is that basically going back to Imhotep is the first founder of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's like this, when they first repelled the Brood in ancient Egypt by gathering together everyone. And they created the first Shield, and then you go through time, and Leonardo da Vinci's a member, and Tesla's a member, and it's all these, great minds throughout history who have been all protecting Earth from these things. In fact, they even have like where Galactus actually visited Earth in like the 16th century, and Da Vinci had to repel him.
Oh, defeat him. Oh, interesting.
And also, well, what's interesting is that in that same idea, you have the split of Shield, which, although I don't think they've actually made it official, but is like well, actually, no, it is official in the Hail Hydra arc of Captain America, where they had Captain America become Hydra.
Mm.
That actually, Sir Isaac Newton, when his group splintered from Shield, they became Hydra. But they still feel that they are the actual defenders of the Earth, and that Shield is, because Shield just doesn't want to do what needs to be done.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of comic book lore for you there, just to give a little deep dive into this. We'll see if that's where they go with this. I don't know yet.
Hydra is your friend. Really?
Well, it is an interesting thing. There's that episode of Star Trek, if you remember, where they basically go to the world where they go to Nazi world, and it turns out it was like founded by this really noted historian of this noted Starfleet historian, because he just felt if you could create the Nazis but not have them be Nazis, it's like the structure works. The structure of fascism and motivating a society works so well, but how could you do that without having them be horrible monster people? And the answer is you can't.
Right. I was just going to say, I mean, it seems like it's born out of desperation, and the only answer to desperation is misery and bringing someone else into the desperation and misery.
But you have to look at it from, I guess, in this case, Sir Isaac Newton's point of view, which is that the world's full of idiots, and the only way we can save the world is by controlling people so that they can't be a danger to themselves, and we can use what's best of them to save the world on which we happen to live.
Right. I mean, but that's simply just bureaucracy, right? And that's the answer.
Well, yeah. Well, that's well, I mean, honestly, it goes deep, and it goes kind of left and right and center.
Fair enough.
But
yeah.
that's what makes it a good story.
Right.
But we do get May in this storyline, and we do see May basically being pulled along in the whole thing. And then comes to realize that, okay, these strikes are real, that we do have these creatures. Although, honestly, when it does the spider walk, human bodies aren't really designed to do like that, so I don't think you're actually helping your case any when you go into a spider walk. It looks creepy, and it's like all body horror, but it really doesn't actually make you fight any better.
No, maybe it's just the new animal consciousness trying to interpret how to use this new body, and this is the best sense it can make of it. Like, imagine if our consciousness was planted into a creature with limbs we didn't recognize and posture that we didn't recognize. We try our best effort to try to, mimic however we think it would move. That's kind of a cool little approach.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair count.
So she has no idea, May does, about what has happened back at the base with a Keller, I think his name was, right?
Yes, yeah, Keller. And of course, this is what we're essentially dealing with, is that there's three stories that are all very connected, but right now everyone's separate. So everyone's getting this one piece of their puzzle. So back at the base, of course, we know that, where we get a lot of exposition. We get. I do love our doctor in this. And I love when he tells him, when he's asking about his drinking, he says, we need you at your best. He says, my best was 20 years ago. Dr. Marcus Benson. Which is not for nothing. It's like, look, dude, you hired an old drunk, okay? I may be a super genius. I might have built the entire Culver University super science department that got us the Incredible Hulk, but that doesn't mean I'm freaking, First of all, I haven't been working in this, as you said. I actually haven't been certified in alien parasites yet. So.
Right. And not only am I fighting, the natural aging process, but I've been helping that along with a bit of alcohol for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's very touching when he tells the story about having to unplug his
husband,
and his family fought him, and it's like, you know. And I get how hard that must be to be in that situation where you have to make that choice of, you know, he's not going to get better and he is suffering, but you never want to let go of the person you love so much, you
Right.
know. Yeah. It's sad. But anyways,
Yeah.
they do recognize that basic, and they do tie it into the monoliths, and they make the point that okay, this monolith does space, which is the black one that we had seen. That's what got Simmons to the other planet.
Hmm.
And that was the first one that humans had actually figured out how to use using gravitational waves to essentially trigger it. Because and essentially what they would do is like when they'd send a sacrifice there, they'd have it lined up so that when all the planets were aligned and certain weights and things were put in a way, it would open up the monolith that would like turn to liquid, and it would take you to another place in space.
Hmm.
And then similarly with the white one, that was the time monolith, because you have space and time. Uh,
Hmm.
then that's what brought them to the future. Um, Now, then they have the third monolith, and they say, well, we don't know what that one does. So obviously that is Chekhov's monolith. That's going to be fired before the end of the season, I'm sure. But they say that these shrikes all have a similar structure to these things. And again, going back to this idea that maybe the Chronotons are from the same group. You know, the Chronotons, or Enoch was the one who knew to set everyone up to go into to use the time monolith to take everyone to the future, so they could get knowledge, go back to the past, and then save everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, it gets crazy. Like I said, I'll send you that link.
Right.
But you know, it's it's interesting, and it's neat. You know, Daisy and the crew comes back, except not for Fitz and Simmons, who are staying there to help the Chronotons figure out time travel. If only they had just asked the Hulk. Although the Hulk won't know about it for another 4 years. So this is, which is the most interesting aspect of this, is that right now Shield is actually dealing with stuff that's way more cutting edge than anything Tony Stark or the Avengers are using. That they're actually, because first off, they have technology from 70 years in the future
right.
that they've brought back, and that's everything that we saw Deke using.
Hmm.
You know, they have technology that's like built off of the Darkhold, and now they're going to figure out time travel before the Hulk does. So that that's going to be the fun storyline here. And of course, May, she defeats the thing. She knows Sarge isn't lying, and it's this little Sarge into that false sense of security. So he thinks, okay, she's on our team. And then, of course, she immediately, you know, flips the script on all of them, takes Sarge and Butterfly Girl out, and takes over their truck and brings it back to base as Daisy and the crew are coming back, and they have the reunion. And then once they all get together, and then they're going to realize, oh wait, we need Fitz and Simmons because they're working on the same project, and we need everyone in the same room now.
I'm sure Enoch will come up with something creative.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if he's able to do that. But I'm sure we have at least one more episode till we get to everyone figuring out what they're supposed to do.
Right.
But all in all, I really like this episode. I really thought this was a strong episode for the series. It gets, you know, what I like about this series, they have a lot of moving parts, but they do seem to be moving everyone very well.
Right.
You know, I think just the fact that they're really ignoring anything that's going on in, as far as the snap and whatever, they're like, you know, we're not even going to talk about it. We've got our own problems now. Which, for what it's worth, is exactly how an organization like S.H.I.E.L.D. has to behave.
Right, because if they had a moment to sit and stop and think and lament about what had happened, they would take it. But right now, if they do that, they'll lose everything else that's left.
Mm-hmm. And for what it's worth, you know, I mean, we'll see if we get it. You know, I would not be surprised if we don't get before the end of this some kind of contact with Natasha. Since this does take place 4 years before she dies. So when they all get, so that if we do get some touch base with her by the end of the season, it would be neat, where they're just, you know, filing in with sort of do that holographic file in as they did with everyone else. And it's just like, you know, S.H.I.E.L.D. is but you know, S.H.I.E.L.D. is still doing secret stuff, because you know what? Not everything needs the Avengers.
Mm.
And if there's one thing about Shield is, we don't always need, we don't need the event. We need the Avengers for certain things, but the fact of the matter is, there's lots of things the Avengers don't need to know about, and that we need to take care of, because that's what we do. We're the people on the wall. We are the Shield.
Right.
So,
We're the overarching plan.
Yeah, exactly.
One scene that I thought was really cool was the captain of S.H.I.E.L.D. came up to Yo-Yo and asked how she was doing, and sort of implied that he knew about her and Keller. She didn't really want to talk about it, but I thought it was cool that that he approached her and wanted to see if she was okay, taking the leadership role and saying, my feelings be damned, I just need to make sure my crew is okay. And the other thing that I thought that was cool about that scene was him walking up down the hallway like, yo, and it sounds like he's, just like a young kid on the block going yo, but that's her name. I thought that was kind of funny.
That's her code name. Yeah. It was very cool. I'm really hoping we do get to see what's going on with Mockingbird at some point. I know that they wrote her out of the series, but I mean, I figure, hey, with half the world gone, maybe that's a good time to bring her back. Although maybe she got snapped in the snap too. So, you never know. But okay. Final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz? Anything you want to add in there before we go out of this and then head over to Just Punishment?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this season. I really feel like they've already been signed for the 7th season, which whether or not that's going to be on Disney Plus or that's still going to be on broadcast, we don't know yet. But it's definitely approved, and you can even see the little placeholders on IMDb now for season 7. So that's because honestly, I do think that Shield is going to be much more and more sort of the background for a lot of the stuff that we're going to get going into Phase 4. I think they're going to try and reconnect all of the TV stuff back to us. But we'll see what happens. Mozz, if people would like to talk to you about the agents or anything else that's going on in your mind or theirs, how can they find you?
Or they can reach me via email at mozzmanzor@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Pause once did, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when my phone isn't running out of power, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's.
For quality. Bing!
I don't have a proper intro for Nuff Said. I don't have a proper outro for Nuff Said yet. So, we just have to say the one thing we say at the end of the show, Mozz. Nuff said.
Nuff said.